Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands, what was that like? Had a patient who came into ER for UTI with very boyfriend of 4 months, his words. She was 19. Acting extremely dramatic for just having UTI. We tell her we need urine. She urges us to cath her, which is really unusual, but she says she can't pee, so me and other nurse assume the position to put in a Foley with her lying on the gurney. At this point nurse screams, "Call L&D. She's crowning." L&D nurse gets in just in time to grab the child as it shoots out into her hands and as a living breathing baby. The girl swears she had no idea she was pregnant. They wheel her off to postpartum and the guy is just kind of left standing there, dumbstruck. We only been dating 4 months. I had no idea she was pregnant. She never mentioned it at all. As he just buried his head in his knees while he was sitting on the floor against the hallway wall. I felt so bad for the guy. Maybe I am wrong, but wouldn't a pregnant person have at least some physical indication that they're pregnant? Like, I know there's the fear of asking if someone is pregnant and they aren't, but like, if you're dating, wouldn't that be fairly evident over time? Edit, just want to thank everyone that has responded. I now understand that it is not uncommon for women to not show typical pregnancy signs during a pregnancy. I have learned more than I expected today. When my baby was born, people asked me if her father was Polynesian. Nope. He's a skinny white man. There was no doubt he was the father. She was born with thick black hair, she was a big baby, 4 kilograms, and had jaundice, which made her look very tan. The hair fell out, the jaundice went away, she thinned out, and I now have a strawberry blonde-haired 2-year-old that looks exactly like her papa. But man, if I hadn't known he was the only man I'd slept with, I would have some serious doubts. Thanks for this. Now I have the mental image of a baby popping out, the mother looking at the baby and audibly going, "Wait a minute, I don't remember cheating." When my eldest was born, first he was a boy when we were told it was a girl, and then the midwife's cleaning him up and says, "Oh, his hair looks strawberry blonde." Me and husband are both dark, so that was unexpected. I meant to make a joke and say, "Are you sure he's mine?" But still being high as a kite on Picotin and gas and air, I said, "Husband, are you sure he's yours?" Midwife freaked out, "You can't say that, you can't say that." Husband, who had known me long enough to know my bad jokes, just looked at me, sighed and shook his head. And that was the last chance I had to joke about his paternity. Kid is a total daddy clone except for his hair. Funny story related to yours. I was born big, 4.2 kilograms, long, had very dark head of hair and was jaundiced. Apparently my grandma was making snide remarks about how I was an Arab baby, insinuating that my mother slept with one of her coworkers, as she happened to be working with some men from Saudi Arabia who were there on a contract. Jokes on her, as out of all of my father's, her son's, kids I look the most like him. She is dead now, but if she were alive I would have sent her my FaceApp age progression photo, which makes me look remarkably like her. I bet she never apologized either. She wasn't the type. Not exactly the situation you're asking for, but Reddit loves a good crazy mill story. My dad is blonde and my mom is brunette. I came out of the womb with fiery red hair. My dad's mom made a huge fuss about my mom cheating on my dad and had to be escorted out of the hospital. My grandmother's own mother had flaming red hair, which she apparently forgot until my great-grandmother held me for the first time and said, "I always wanted a baby with my red hair." Wait, so your dad's mom forgot that her own mom had red hair? Not that bad, because my sister came out looking like me, I'm the older sister, but with auburn, strawberry blonde hair to my dark blonde. Same situation though, mom's mom had actual Irish red hair, but she had gone white so long ago nobody remembered except grandma. And everybody else in the family either had dark brunette, all her daughters, my mom and aunts, most of my cousins, or dark blonde. Funny thing, my blonde was a huge surprise originally. Mom knew she carried the recessive for it, but dad's side is all dark brown. Turned up his World War II baby ration card, he was blonde as a baby. Gotta love those recessive ginger genes. I'm the only one in my immediate family with red hair. It comes from somewhere on my father's side because a cousin of mine also has it. Mother to be warned, this could go one of two ways prior to delivery. Wasn't sure what she meant. She was white, as was her husband. Delivered baby was black. Then it all made sense. So one of my very white friend's girlfriends was pregnant, and when the baby was born it was very purple looking. Buddy flipped out, went on Facebook announcing she was a cheating hoe and had another man's baby. Few days later the baby was very white and the DNA test showed it was his. He just deleted his whole damn Facebook instead of owning up to it. What was the reaction? Don't leave us hanging, haha. Not a doctor or nurse, but in undergrad I had a buddy, Caucasian, who'd been dating the same girl, also Caucasian, for a while. She gets knocked up, he proposes. Fast forward a few months and both families are eagerly waiting at the hospital to meet the baby. The baby comes out black. Everyone is in shock. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. My buddy called off the engagement immediately, returned the ring, and never looked back. Misunderstanding? How could there be any kind of misunderstanding? I read that last sentences, returned to the ring, and now I have an idea for Hollywood for a movie about a boxer who gets back in the ring to escape the problems of everyday life. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. I can't believe that didn't work. Not a doctor, but someone in my extended family had a baby, two Middle Eastern parents, that turned out to be dark-skinned. The father of the baby filed for divorce, even though the mother kept saying the baby was his. A few years later, they found out that the mother's great-grandmother was African and that the baby obtained strong genes from her. They didn't get back together, because too much had gone down at that point, but the mother was right all along. TLDR, two Middle Easterns had dark-skinned baby, husband divorced, but later it was found out that it was genetics. To think this would have been solved with a paternity test. I am gonna have to guess other issues were going on in that relationship. Super awkward for everyone involved. The husband was only in the room for a bit, then left and didn't see him again. The father of baby showed up after the baby was born. I've also had where they didn't know whose baby it was, so both guys were present to see whose they thought it was. Two of my cousins and one of our friends had that situation. The girl was upfront with all of them when she found out she was pregnant. She wasn't dating any of them, just being a free spirit, so there they were, three dudes sitting in a waiting room waiting to find out whose life would change forever. Baby came out a spitting image of one of my cousins. To this day I'm amazed how well it all worked out, no drama. Kid has two loving parents even though they've never formally been together. Jesus. This is painfully awkward. I've also had where they didn't know whose baby it was, so both guys were present to see whose they thought it was. Hey, how's it going? As expected, you? I've been better. I was told this story by a nurse. Veracity might be clouded by time, but a birth of the couple's third child. The couple was white, the baby was obviously of Pacific Islander descent. Everyone went very quiet. The nurse telling me the story said she took a moment of silence as she realized what had happened, then she tried to act normally, but waiting for the outburst. She said the tension was unreal. The guy stared for a minute at a child that was very obviously not his. The mum was already in tears and talking very fast. The guy stood up, looked around for a minute, then left the room. Never said a word. He wasn't seen again at the hospital. The mum spent the rest of the day on her phone. The nurse doesn't think she ever found him. The last part is even more distantly related gossip, but allegedly the father cut all ties immediately, speaking regarding care of his two actual kids only through his lawyer. If any of that is true, I take my hat off to the guy. Edit, just to clarify, the story goes he was very much into raising, looking after his actual kids, but wanted nothing further to do with the mum or the kid that wasn't his. He lawyered up to avoid potential emotional fallout, which to me is pretty classy, again, if true. Damn. That's gotta suck for him. Everything suddenly falling apart at what's supposed to be one of the happiest moments of your life. Good on him for not blowing up. That's some next level strength to just quietly leave and settle your disputes with a neutral party. Fucking sucks that she did. Like, why? Anyone who has been around delivery rooms will tell you oftentimes babies come out looking darker or lighter, not matching the parents' skin tone right away. Hell, my white sister was mistaken for Hispanic until she was about a year old. I think that nurse just likes to tell stories. Not a cheating story, but my sister's friend was born fair-skinned with red hair and green hazel eye colored. Both parents are dark-skinned with black hair and brown eyes. When her mom gave birth, everyone in the room went silent. However, the father knew that his wife didn't cheat. Turned out, his wife's great-great-grandmother had red hair and fair skin. However, hospital protocol made both parents get a DNA test, and everything was okay. I'm red-haired with blue eyes from a dad with black hair and brown eyes and a mom with auburn hair and hazel eyes. My sister is light blonde with blue eyes. My sister looks very much like my dad features-wise, but I'm more like my mom, and I'm not entirely convinced my dad is my dad, but at this point, it'd be just an odd FYI. He's my dad in the way that matters. In what country is a DNA test hospital protocol? And we all know it's not France. Okay, story from a friend of my brother's. She worked as a nurse and a woman and her husband came in. They were both white, and she delivered a child that was black. The husband immediately starts saying WTF, while she is going on and on about dormant traits and everything. He orders a DNA test. While this is going on, her mother and stepdad show up. The stepdad is black. After the testing is done, the DNA test ends up showing that the baby is the stepdad's. Her husband instantly dropped her and cut ties. Edit, in response to some comments. This didn't happen over the course of a couple of hours. Husband hung out, albeit reluctantly, until things were conclusive. Once testing showed it wasn't his baby, they tested the stepdad. Probably suspected something, I wasn't there, I don't know the deeper details. Holy shit. Real life Pornhub. This went from 0 to 100 to 1000 real quick. So she had her stepdad's baby. Holy shit. Why would they sample the stepdad's DNA? They would just do the baby and the two parents, or am I missing something? Probably going to get buried but still wanna share. Not my story, it's the story of my dad's friend. In high school, my dad's friend, Carl, was always into this girl, Cindy, but she was always dating this one guy, Jimmy. Jimmy breaks up with Cindy and she goes off the rails, sleeping with everyone. Carl sees it as his chance to be the good guy and starts dating her. I'm not sure, but they either had a Ross and Rachel thing where they kept on breaking up and getting back together, she broke up with him, or that she was always cheating on him. Especially if Jimmy was hinting at them getting back together, they never did though, and he'd just sleep with her. But Carl never listened to my dad or his friends because of blind love. She was perfect in his eyes. So high school is over and Carl goes to the army. They weren't officially dating, but every time he was able to come back he'd end up with her a night or two. My dad and his friends knew that she was sleeping around the whole time, but Carl didn't care. Eventually, while he was still serving, she convinced him that they were dating again. He proposed to her and she looked around for a house for them that he paid for with his army money. He comes back for good and they get married. A year later they have a beautiful baby girl together. That baby girl is his everything. This guy grew up a migrant worker and now he has his high school sweetheart, a home, a decent job, and his own little princess. 5 years later his wife gets pregnant again. This time she has a baby boy. Now he has to start working more to be able to care for the new baby while mom continues to be a stay-at-home mom. When the son is around 2 and the girl is around 7, he comes home to divorce papers and all his clothes packed up. Turns out the lovely house the wife had to have was because it made her the next door neighbor to Jimmy. This entire time she was still sleeping with him despite him also having a partner. The little girl and baby boy Carl thought were his weren't, they were Jimmy's kids, and Cindy knew it. Jimmy's partner had left him, so he finally wanted to be a family man, and Cindy jumped at the chance, kicking out Carl and divorcing him. He went into a depression and ended up losing his job because of it. I'm not sure what happened after that, but I hope Carl found a niece-loving girl in the end. Edit, wow, I didn't expect this to get so popular. I just wanted to add that this was a story, it really did happen, that my dad had told me when my ex-boyfriend cheated on me and I was thinking about getting back together with him again because he was, oh so sorry. My dad had to watch as his friend went through all of this and they couldn't do anything because he didn't want to be saved. He didn't want the same thing to happen to me, so that's why he talked to me about this when I was 14 and dating a known player. My parents are very big on learn from my mistakes and I'm very grateful for that. Though in this instance it was learn from my friend's mistakes. Especially since had I not been told this I would have had this exact thing happen to me. But with him having kids with other women. So those of you saying things like, he was asking for it, and, how could he get her to respect himself when not even he did? You're right. If all of your friends are telling you someone isn't good for you, listen to them. Edit 2, so a lot of people seem confused. First, Carl stopped serving right before they got married, but he still worked in a job that requires long hours, and Cindy was a stay-at-home mom, so she still had plenty of time to cheat even though he wasn't gone for months, weeks on end. Second, I was pretty young when my dad told me this, so I didn't think to ask how come he never thought it was weird that their neighbor happened to be Cindy's ex that she frequently left him for in high school. I just thought he must have thought it was one hell of a coincidence. As someone else said, it's hard to see the truth when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. Third, as for the house situation, that's also foggy. I'm not sure if he felt bad about having to kick them out. I think Jimmy was only renting the house next door. If he thought letting her have the house would make her change her mind. Or if even though they used his money to buy it, it was under her name. Fourth, I think he still tried to be in the kid's life after, but neither of the birth parents wanted him to, and despite the fact that he truly did love them, he just could look at them without being reminded of what happened. Jesus, that just sucks royally for Carl. Jody's on his bullshit again. As shitty as this story is, it's all too common in the military. I have quite the number of stories similar to this that happened to guys I served with. Damn, I hope Carl found himself a good loyal woman, and I hope Jimmy got ass cancer and needs a colostomy bag that old girls gotta change every day for him. Smiling face with horns. Wow. Can't save someone from themselves. I'm a midwife. The only one I've seen was when a baby had to be taken to the nursery for treatment for ABO incompatibility. We test the blood groups of all babies born to O+ mothers because they're at risk for it. So the mother was O+, and the baby was something else, would have been from the father. The father was insisting it couldn't be correct because it didn't match his blood group. We had to tell him to be quiet, now was not the time, place. Don't. What ended up happening? However, they were from an ethnic background that may value certain blood types over others, so we did wonder if he actually knew his type or his parents had just told him it was the good one. There is a hierarchy of blood types. People will shit on each other for any reason. It's sometimes best not to leap to conclusions too quickly. When I was born my skin was a little blue, thankfully my dad didn't get angry and accused my mum of fuggin' a Smurf. Papa Smurf got away with that one. My wife's best friend is a doctor who delivers babies. I'll ask and get back to you all. Edit. A couple of stories came in. She delivered one baby where the father and mother were acting really awkward, but he was around during labor, and when it came time to push, the man just walked out and left the room. Apparently the issue was they were just friends and he lived in another state with his wife and kids. Another woman had an affair with her cousin's husband and got pregnant, calling him her fiancé. Her own husband died during this period and it prompted her to go out and sleep with a few other one-night stands. At this point she tried to get an abortion, but she was turned away because she was overweight and hypertensive, making the procedure too risky. She never followed up with the doctor and gained weight to over 400 pounds. It was too late for an abortion at this point, and she had been taking medication for the hypertensive thing, and the medication can cause death, deformities. When she delivered, it took the entire staff to prevent her from having a stroke and the baby's kidneys. Do they work? No one knows. Most of the stories are that the man cheated. If the mother cheats, there's no real reason to bring it up, so they don't really know. Lots of having to tell a mother who has only slept with one man that she and her baby have chlamydia. No weird stories of white babies to black parents or vice versa. Also, if my wife's friend sees this, she will know who it is. Please just don't go through my history and judge me for my crayon-colored Pokémon picture. Your Pokémon picture is amazing. Wait. Her condition prevented her from having an abortion, but that same condition made her need to take medication that was harmful to pregnant women? How are you supposed to deal with situations like this? Newborn had chlamydia, got it from the mom, obviously. So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad, because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too, with the other guy's girlfriend, and all four of them had chlamydia, with no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. Just envisioning four Spider-Men pointing at each other. Poor baby. Obligatory, not a doctor, nurse. But both of my parents have blonde hair. When I was born, my hair was strawberry blonde. My paternal grandparents lost their shit and accused my mom of cheating because red-tinted hair didn't run in their family. However, it ran in my mom's family, with a redhead popping up every now and then. My paternal grandparents didn't know that, they just really hated my mom, so looked for excuses to drag her down. It wasn't until I stopped looking like a potato, as most newborns do, and started looking like a person when my dad's family features came through enough to make them apologize to my mom. Your grandparents sound like assholes. I don't think I've ever wanted to see an askeritic question answered so badly in my life. My brother married a half-Korean, half-white woman who had 3 girls to the same Mexican guy. The first girl looks Latina. The second girl looks Pacific Islander. The third girl has platinum blonde hair and icy blue eyes. They look nothing alike, and yet if you look at their lineage it all makes sense. I don't know if this ever caused any issues between her and her ex, but I could understand if an eyebrow was raised in the third one. Now she has a 4th girl with my brother and she looks nothing like the other 3. Just standard brown hair, brown-eyed white girl. I know this ain't super relevant to the question, but it always entertains me. My mother is from NZ, of Scottish descent, had red hair when she was young. My dad is from Australia and has jet black hair and looked a bit like Errol Flynn when he was younger. Slightly olive skin. My older brother has red hair and very fair skin. My older sister has jet black hair and slightly olive skin. I have brown hair and freckly skin. My younger brother has blonde hair and tan skin. No idea what the doctors thought, but I had a phone call from the wife asking for my blood type while they were in the hospital the next day, and I ducked home. I'm A. The wife is O. Bub is A+. I've done enough science to know where that's going. Have done DNA testing, I'm 100% the dad. Still not sure how to get more interesting science info about the myriad markers that apparently exist. As explained to me by a clinical scientist. Sometimes it's not a hard plus or, you can actually be somewhere in between. They can easily be mistyped as, and often are. If you are curious, you both can be tested again, willing to bet one of you is a soft plus. Obligatory, not a nurse, doctor, but. I remember reading while I was pregnant that black babies can be born considerably lighter than their parents. Apparently hilarity can ensue when both parents are dark and expecting their baby to be too. We're all dark skin, but my baby brother was very light. Looked like a white baby with a very slight tan. He's since caught up though, but it had for me thinking I had a white baby brother for a while. From my friend who was a delivery nurse for years. The mother takes the doctor aside and makes him promise to let her know the color of the baby the instant he knows. The baby is born and the doctor announces to mom, "Congratulations on your beautiful, healthy white baby." The father just walked right out the room and they never found anything more out about it. Not completely sure what happened there. Was the father black? Or did he conclude from the doctor's statement that the mother was unsure of the color, meaning she had cheated? Not a doctor, but my best friend's brother-in-law has 2 black parents and came out completely white. DNA test confirmed they were both his parents. It just be like that sometimes. In Cuba, no one looks like their parents. Mixed race babies be like that. Wasn't there, but my cousin found out real quick when his girlfriend's kid was black and neither he nor the girlfriend were. The funny thing is, he's the one taking care of him, as his girlfriend was an even bigger piece of work than he was and keeps showing time and time again that she's not fit to care for a child. A friend of mine tells the story of his aunt giving birth in the 1970s or 80s to a baby that at first glance appeared to be of Asian descent. Aunt and her husband are both Caucasian Midwesterners from long lines of the same sort, going back to Germany. There was evidently a shocked moment, and then the aunt's father, my friend's grandfather, quipped, "Well, they say 1 in 7 babies is born Chinese," and everyone laughed. The tension broke long enough for the doctor, also a white Midwesterner of German stock, said that likely the kid's color is just off due to the events of the birth. That baby is now a man in his 30s or 40s, and looks like your typical Midwesterner. He just had some tinge to his skin for a few hours following the birth, plus some dark hair at birth that has since lightened up. I have a white friend who is a superman of a dad. When his 3rd child was born, she was obviously of mixed race. His white wife had an affair with a black man. The wife also had substance abuse issues before this pregnancy and was no longer dependable or stable as a mother. So my friend immediately divorced her and took custody of the kids. All of them. He's been raising his 2 bio kids and the 3rd child who isn't technically his for the past decade. She's his princess and he loves her exactly like the other 2. Well, since no one is talking, I read an article where the white mother wanted to hide her black baby from the father and begged the nurses to do so. I can only imagine the storm left behind. If I were in that boat, my spouse would be informed far ahead of the delivery. However, procrastinating is easier. Unless she was hoping her husband was the lucky dad that got through. Little different twist, I am Ukrainian. My great-grandfather was Crimean Tatar, who are mixed Turkic and Mongolian. My wife is Ukrainian and Italian. My first boy was blonde, my second was dark-haired, dark-skinned, and has the classic almond-shaped Asiatic eyes. Mongolian spot. Despite the fact that we know my family history, we ordered a test to make sure there was no separation at birth stuff C-section. Yep, that's our boy. You would never know looking at us that that boy is genetically related to us. And we love him to pieces. I had a guy who worked for me years ago, he was white, she was a fair-skinned Indian. They had a baby that was so much darker than her and the tight black curly hair was a giveaway. He insisted it was his and stayed with her until she ran off with someone else. He wasn't the brightest light on the Christmas tree and the drugs obviously made it worse. I had a female patient come in with abdominal pain. Pregnancy test was positive. She was with her husband who, evidently, had a vasectomy about a year prior. I slowly backed out of the room after that one. Ya know, vasectomies aren't 100% effective. Med student. Had a mother who was A and father was A but baby ended up being A+. Mother was asking if it was possible for this to happen and the doctor kind of implied that it was possible, to my surprise since it's not meant to be. But they suggested to retest the husband's blood group and follow up with their GP. The doctor told me after that they didn't want to get involved and would leave it up to the GP to deal with and just hope the husband was actually positive. Apparently got awkward the next day. They stayed for a couple days after due to complications when the husband was asking about blood grouping and was just strongly suggested to get retested. I never found out what happened after, but from my impression of the mother and some of the things she said, I am pretty sure she cheated. I'm a nurse. I have seen quite a few situations where dad turns out not to be dad, but never because of the color of the newborn. I have, however, seen an absolute fug ton of kids who are born and don't look like the same ethnicity as their parents for days or sometimes a couple of weeks. Babies often look darker when they are born. Just saying, some of these anecdotal stories might not necessarily be true. Grabs popcorn. Not hygienic while delivering babies. I don't need sleep. I need answers. Kinda the inverse of what you're asking for. My mom has a story about when she gave birth to my sister in Sweden. My family was living there temporarily for my dad's work. My mom's blonde and white, my dad's obviously Japanese, but delivery was a C-section, so his entire head basically was covered for sterilization reasons. My sister came out with a full head of dark hair. The nurse looked very concerned and whispered to my mom, "Hey, your baby's black." Not really used to minorities, most Swedes in the 90s. Obviously my parents both laughed it off, but it's a fun anecdote. Anesthesiologist here. C-sections are typically done under spinal anesthesia, and we're the ones at the head of the table keeping the mother calm and talking her through the procedure while the surgeons operate. I've seen it more than once, but I remember one in particular when the parents were both very Caucasian, and the baby was very much not. The actual father obviously had to be very dark-skinned. At delivery, when the not father saw the baby, he just looked down at his wife, who was starting to cry, and calmly said, "You fucking whore," and walked out. She started screaming for him to come back, but there wasn't much she could do since she was, still being operated on. She lost it to the point I eventually had to sedate her just a bit because she was in danger of injuring herself. As far as I know, her husband never came back to the hospital. I don't know what happened after that. Man, if this thread actually takes off. It's at 69 upvotes. There's no stopping us now.